Welcome to Beyond the Hype, where we explore the true potential of NFTs and Web3 beyond the constant buzz. I'm your host, Knute Fosso. We're interviewing industry experts who have exposure to the real-world value that the blockchain can provide. In an industry almost purely fueled by just hype, it's sometimes very hard to build meaningfully and sustainably. I want to stress that these people are on the front lines trying to innovate with the blockchain as best as possible with the right purposes in mind. As the founder and CEO of Hodlperks, my goal is to build a product that's sustainable, meaningful, and really does provide real-world value to everybody. I've had the chance to meet some individuals in the space who really embody the same common focus that we do. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, all we ask is that you share this with a friend or family member. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. This is the very first episode of Beyond the Hype, Building Sustainably and Meaningfully in Web3. This is brought to you by Hodlperks and me. I am your host, Knute Fosso, CEO of Hodlperks. And today we're really excited to have Tony Bin on the show. Tony, you are from Australia. I know that you are currently a consultant and advisor for a couple different projects. So I'm excited to hear more about that. But before we dive in further, I did want to mention this show, again, is all about building sustainably and meaningfully in the space. We're really trying to get beyond the constant hype that we have to put up with in Web3, which is all about Ponzi's, greater fool theory, you name it, really building in obscurity and really just generating these nothing burgers of hype that we have to sometimes deal with. But today we're really looking to talk about topics that are really geared towards those real world solutions or enhancements that only can be done through Web3 and the blockchain. So Tony, it's awesome to have you. I would love to just have a quick synopsis of your background and what you're currently up to today.
Yeah, sure. And firstly, thanks for having me. It's really exciting, and I'm very passionate about the space, and particularly excited to help out any way I can with people doing great stuff. So my background's pretty diverse. I've worked about 20 years in venture-backed start and scale up businesses, and that's
Wow.
been across a range of different verticals. And it's from selling straws that flavored milk when I was in my early 20s, an amazing CPG or FMCG product, which was an incredible experience, um, through to
I'm sorry, what's that?
yeah.
What's that? What's the so you said a couple of acronyms there. I'm sorry. I just want to
Yeah, so
understand. So
consumer packaged good or fast
oh
moving
wow.
consumer goods,
Okay.
depending on the market. So pretty amazing product. It was
Yeah.
proprietary technology, which was a straw
Okay.
with two filters on either end. And within the space, you could deliver benefits that would dissolve as you drink. So the first product was a milk flavoring straw. So people would get a
Okay.
glass of milk, put a straw in and drink it. The milk would dissolve the beads and deliver flavor. And so that was pretty
Oh.
revolutionary and cool. And, we set up distribution. I think it was in 100 plus markets in a couple of years. And, I was traveling around Latin America with little bags of white powder of like sugar
Wow.
samples. And yeah, it was quite amazing. I was in my early 20s, and we did deals with Tetra Pak, PepsiCo, McDonald's. So that was an
Yeah.
incredible product in terms of uh, disrupting an industry and taking new ideas to market. And so early on, I was
Absolutely.
really connected and enjoyed that process. And from there, fell into some corporate systems integration. That was interesting, but not really the right fit. And then fell into a bunch of consulting, Web 2 based businesses who were looking to start, land, and
Yeah.
expand and scale in different regions. With
Yeah.
that, I worked with Indiegogo. That was a wonderful crowdfunding platform, really
Yeah.
disrupting and changing the way people access finance. Worked with a social gifting business founded by Andreas N, who was a CTO of Spotify, and then fell my
Wow.
way into working with a bunch of different people. But for the last big chunk of years, I spent a lot of time with a Sequoia-backed unicorn called House, which was changing the way that people engage with their home renovation and design process. And
Yeah.
throughout it all, it was always about taking something, applying it that would lead to a shift in the way industries were currently working. So my sort of foray into Web3 came through the fact that delving around a little bit in the space, speculative bets, get rich quick schemes and opportunities.
Yeah.
So It was interesting to learn about the new tech, but as I discovered it, I started to become incredibly bullish and excited about the impact that it will have on society. And
Yeah.
fundamentally, I believe that we are on the precipice of a significant shift in how society work, operates, and engages. And the underpinnings of what Web3 can deliver will help drive that path forward. And that's really exciting to be involved in and be around.
Yeah. Oh, Tony, that's super like your background, man. I remember you telling it to me before, and I'm just like, wow, all these things you've been through, yet something makes you want to stay involved in Web3. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe, we are just stubborn and we don't want to leave, or maybe that we actually see the value in what we're able to produce here in Web3. I don't know what it is, but I'm just curious. Do you have any takes on like what it is that, the bear market crashed? Okay. We've all lost and gained maybe tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? We've all had been rug pulled probably at this point. So like Tony, for you, what is it that makes you wanna stay in Web3? I know you mentioned a couple things there, but, like,
Sure.
really, what is it?
Mm, I think it's taking a step back, right?
Yeah.
And if you have to make a binary bet today, will the
Mm,
world get more digitally immersed or less digitally immersed from this point in time? And for
mm,
me, that is such a clear decision on which path it's going to go. And if the
hmm,
belief is that the world will become more digitally immersed, which is how it's
yeah,
progressed over the last 40 years, then you have to understand, well, what is a technology that's going to drive and lead us down that pathway? And
mm,
so, whilst we're still in such an iterative early phase where people are sort of finding out use cases, it's highly speculative, it's
mm,
that constant belief that the world will shift through digital immersion. And with digital
yeah,
immersion requires solutions like identification, authentication, digital assets, decentralized connections and ownership. And that for me is really what the space is doing. So
yeah,
I'm a naturally curious person. So I find
yeah,
this stuff interesting, but I also
yeah,
fundamentally believe I want to position and transition my career to being in that area because it can
yeah,
go around a bunch of divergent different areas, but I want to be
yeah,
there. And I feel like I've done my time. I've had a successful
yeah,
career so far. I've really enjoyed that, but I'm making a conscious effort to try to add my skills and position myself in a
abs
space that I believe will be incredibly valuable going forward and fun to be in.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, if I'm honest with you, I think somebody with your background would be, probably a CEO or some sort of very high level executive at one of these larger corporations here. At least that I would think of. And so the the fact that you continue to chase after Web3 is just, I just want the audience to understand. Like, I think that's very impactful for somebody like your with your background and whatnot. Now I am curious, like in your current roles today. Um, Tell me a little bit about how you found, you work with both MintPad and the Doge Pound. What exactly do you do at both of those companies? Well, one's an NFT collection, one is more of a product slash service. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, what kind of brought you to those, and what does that look like today for you?
Yeah, sure. I think the process is one through humility and knowing what you know and knowing clearly what you don't know. So very
Yeah,
confident and comfortable with the skill set that I have, but entering deeply into the space probably 2 years ago when I started to
yeah.
get into NFTs, you're working off a zero knowledge base. So the
What
first
brought
step
you
was
into what brought you into it? By the way,
um,
I'm just curious.
I think I'd always dabbled a little bit around, and then it was in fairness, well, one of my friends works with an equities trading platform, and then there was all the Wall Street bets phenomenon, and I was like, "What's going on there?" And then Dogecoin sort of tipped off, and then started going down a little rabbit hole of research, and then started looking into different influences and different articles, and then sort of discovered on NFTs, and NFTs was so interesting. I mean, from a speculative financial sense, they're wildly profitable, and that was fun. And I'm not going to deny that that was an early motivator, but
Yeah,
sort of engaging and connecting with communities and learning and having genuine relationships, friendships, and laughs and ups and downs, and people to share that ride with was really
totally.
valuable. And I think after I had been connected and immersed in a couple of private communities that are probably the most gratifying and still connections. I speak to friends every single day and seeing people change the trajectory of their lives. It was a conscious decision to be, well, if this is an area I want to explore further, there are huge knowledge and experience gaps that I have in this world. So how do I be humble, start at the bottom and work my way up and just sort of put my hand up to add value where I could add value? So over time, started engaging with the Doge Pound. OG collection was one of the first NFTs I ever owned, and
Yeah.
strong, affinity with what John Lemon and the team do there, and authentic and altruistic and
Mm.
consistent. And so wanted to
Yeah.
help out with them, and through networking and opportunities, started working with a lot of collabs and looking at different strategic relationships and partnerships and how we
Mm.
could think about how do we take this collection from a great foundation, but really build it as a comprehensive ecosystem and community that can help shift us to the next phase. So every day may be different. It could be working with licensing deals, thinking of how do we onboard new people? How do we leverage our technology and our IP to really position ourselves to be the go
Mm.
to brand with dogs in Web3? And
Yeah.
specifically, one of the amazing things about the Doge Pound community is it is such a hotbed of creative activity and smart people who are building, doing stuff and looking to create new opportunities. And through
Yeah.
that, that's really how I started engaging with the MintPad team. And
Yeah.
what MintPad do is provide a really simple, easy to use tool where anyone can launch an NFT collection across
Mhm.
multiple chains with no
Yeah.
development required. And that
Wow.
really interests me because the obstacles that people feel that they have to create and build is often that technical
Mhm.
requirement. So removing that technical obstacle and facilitating people to do really cool, experimental and fun stuff is something I believe is really important. So it's still at fledgling stage. There's the dev team over in Europe, and we've got connections and opportunities around the place. And primarily it's a sort of partnerships, business and marketing, a little bit of strategy, a little bit of um, Mr. Fix It as well, just doing what needs to be
Yeah.
done. Whilst the guys are really driving it, it's just sort of helping out and adding weight where there's value to be added. But it's incredibly exciting and yeah, really enjoying the opportunities of both teams to be able to sort of contribute in any way I can.
Oh, man. Yeah, totally. And I think like one thing too that I kind of got from what you were saying over there is really that uh, with Web3, I feel like there's so many opportunities for you to just kind of mold and make what you want of it. In Web2, it's much more like stay in your lane, right? Now,
Yeah,
of course, we talk Web2, we talk Web3, but when I refer to Web3, I'm really referring to the culture in this instance, and being able to come in with a skill set or an experience and really just employ that. Like you can learn so much through doing. So
yeah,
why not just get into an opportunity in an area that's in growth that needs people with strong skill sets, and it's able to grow. And I think personally, I'm just talking about, obviously, I don't know in your situation, but I know in a lot of other places, people are taking jobs in, areas that are way, way, way underneath their market value in Web 2, for
yeah,
example. We're talking 30, 40, 50%, maybe even 80% lower than what they would be worth on the Web 2 side of things. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to grow, they want to learn, they want to know how they can apply something like AI and combine it with experience in the Web3 side of the place. So it's really, really cool to see all that. And there's an important confluence that I could see definitely coming, and I know many others too see coming with that. AI and their part with NFTs and all sorts of different things like that. Um, so as just kind of a segue, I wanted to mention that to you. I think that's a great place to even start out with. Do you
mm,
feel like as one of the more sustainable and meaningful use cases in NFTs, do you feel like AI is going to play a big part of that? And if so, how do you see that kind of taking
yeah.
place?
So I feel AI will be a massive society shifter,
Hmm.
a catalyst for enormous change and opportunity. And I don't think
Yeah.
it's NFT specific. I think it is societal wide. It will have
Hmm.
impact and opportunity throughout every sort of touch point of our lives. But if you
Hmm.
think about the categorization of the internet, and again, going back to that notion of greater digital immersion, if you think about the
Hmm.
evolution of our interaction with online activity, you start with Web 1, that's a very broadcast sender to receiver opportunity. And that was
Hmm.
groundbreaking and set up people to have access and connection and ability to engage on a global level. Web 2 comes about and shifts that broadcast opportunity into a dialogue interaction. And when social
Hmm.
really kicks off and extrapolates, and big corporates and brands and the whole world becomes immersed in this two-way conversation, that becomes a massive societal trend that changes the
Yeah.
fabric of how everyone interacts together. The evolution into Web3 is less about the dialogue, but it's more about the co creation and co ownership, co
Hmm.
authentication. And
Hmm.
that is everything that underpins
Yeah.
where the world is headed. Now, that
Yeah.
clearly builds on rails that blockchain provides. NFTs and the ability for creation, authentication, and ownership absolutely
Totally.
plays its role. But
Totally.
AI tangles in with that and helps create an amazing opportunity for incredible
Yeah.
things to be built and created and time efficiencies. And I am by far a futurist. I have no crystal ball to gaze into and look in, but even just the impact of open AI in the last 2, 3 months and the rate of evolution impact that it's having in people's day to
Yeah.
day lives, that's wild. And if it
Yeah.
can do that in 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, it's gonna be, an incredibly interesting environment in which to play. And there are
Yeah.
a number of different paths it can go down. And one of
Mm.
the things that, um, excites me is the ability to help influence that, because we may end up in a dark dystopian reality, right? And
Yeah.
that is something that is a possibility. And for us all,
Hopefully
the
not.
yeah, hopefully not, but not particularly with AI. AI knows of the individuals and the environments that it's created in,
Yeah.
and I feel like we all have a responsibility to actually help positively shift that in trends that will lead to a happier, better, more informed, healthier, um, more pleasant society. And that's
Oh
something I'm
yeah.
really excited about playing a role in.
Oh yeah. No, it's totally something that's evolving, and I think you're absolutely right. And I've actually been talking with somebody about this recently, but it's almost like there's almost two sort of economies that I could start to see sort of taking place. Um, there's like where you have products or services that have been enhanced or optimized using AI. Maybe that means, even in the future, you have a service where you're at a restaurant, right? And you're getting weighted by an AI agent or something like that. You are getting, uh, a plumber or something like that. There could be, out in the distant future, there could be that. And it really depends if people are going to be optimizing for the cheapest, fastest, and I guess you could say best in the at least in that regard, um, and in their product. But I think what's actually interesting about all this is that I could see kind of like a human to human economy almost forming, where you also have humans who only wish to have other humans doing things, and it's the reason is because of connection. Um, I'm valuing this conversation that we have right now, for example,
Yeah.
because I know that you're a human. It wouldn't be the same if you were AI Tony Ben, right? It wouldn't be the
Yeah,
same with
yeah.
me because I know that it's optimized to not even it's just creating something that's the best answer for these questions I'm asking you, and it has all
Yeah.
the knowledge to really do that. Plus your own ways of speaking and whatnot. So it would be missing that and lacking that. And I think that traveling back through things, and I'll get to our main point here, but traveling back a little ways, communities have started to really form, right? So you look like in 15, 20 years ago, using Facebook and whatnot. Just for an example, groups weren't really a thing. People kind of hung around as, it started as colleges, really. So if you look at Facebook, it started as colleges, right? So it started with a community thing, but then it went wider and wider and wider and wider. And I don't think humans were meant for that, right? Like they might be meant for that exposure for a short a period of time. That's fine. As if you were in a busy market. But, I think like that news feed or that Twitter feed is so overwhelming. So I don't know about you, but I can't handle that for very long. So kind of segueing over time, what we've seen is that more and more popularity has grown amongst these groups, like local groups where you go to hang out your Facebook group or your subreddit or you go hang out in your Discord community. And that is just a huge, huge important part. And I think one thing that AI kind of threatens almost is that, right? Because communities could, I mean, what's stopping an AI agent from just becoming a person in that group, right? Or in that community, right? But what it would have, do you want to hang out in a community that is 50% bots and 50% humans? Personally, not for me. I would rather just because I go to that group to hang out with other fellow humans. Um,
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I think that tokenized memberships really play a huge role in that because they assign a weight in Web3. It really assigns a weight with an NFT, something that an AI agent could technically probably figure out a way to buy one and all that good stuff. Sure. But it really does make it trickier, at least in the present, what we're able to perceive right now with the current state of AI. It makes it much, much harder to do something like that. Do you, I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts on kind of like that? Am I off there? Or do you feel like kind of the same
Yeah.
way about how they
Yeah.
can
I mean,
kind of have that confluence?
it, I'm by far an expert in AI, and I think when we talk about community though, like where community has power is through shared experiences and shared relationships. Now, at some
Absolutely.
point, if AI quality and understanding is to facilitate that share of connection and community, and you're not able to differentiate, well, does it
Mhm.
make a difference to you in the end? Maybe
Yeah.
fundamentally and morally, you feel that it should, but ultimately, if your experience is the same and you don't know the difference, well, who knows? And then it comes down to more of a fundamental moral question about, well,
Yeah.
where do I want the AI impact to go? I mean,
Mhm.
my understanding, and again, wildly nascent, I think the greater risk is, well, if there's a level of redundancy of human interaction and human
Mhm.
skills and bots will do better at it, well, what happens, from a wider society perspective? Is there a requirement
Mhm.
of universal basic income? Are there only a few handful of people that control the wider society and the world? And all of that stuff, I think, becomes much wider structural conversations and
Mhm.
challenges,
Yeah.
particularly when things get smarter and better. And
Mhm.
I think, paring it back in terms of, well, why crypto, why Web3, why blockchain overall. The two things that run in parallel, again, it's that sort of bet that the world goes down for the digital immersion. And that's for
Mhm.
me, it's not an if, it's a when, and I
Yeah.
feel like that only accelerates. The other thing is to be passionate about Web3, and I'm by far a tin hat foil conspiracy theorist. Like, I don't hate the government, right? Like a lot of people hate the but there has to be a level of fundamental unrest with the way the world is structured and functioning currently.
Mhm.
And thinking of a way that, well, why do I stay in this space? Is that I do believe that purely centralized entities are not the best approach going forward. And I don't
Yeah.
believe that the current structures, and it might end up being centralized corporations versus governments necessarily. I don't believe that that structure leads to the best power distribution amongst
Mm.
the wider people. And
Mhm.
for me, that's another sort of driver into what I believe is very interesting in the space and
Mhm.
is helping sort of motivate in terms of, well, what am I doing going forward? Now, flipping
Mhm.
a couple of JPEGs or helping people mint a project, is that fundamentally changing the world power structure? Not
Yeah.
directly, but I do believe that being engage with the space and helping it participate to help it evolve and merge into where it can or should go. That to me is very interesting.
Yeah, and I wanted to stop you right there because I
Yeah.
think there's something super important too. You know, I think depending on what side of the political spectrum we're all on, right? I think we could all agree that it would be a problem if somebody owned all of the different communities that we commune on, right?
Yeah.
That we have dialogue, that people talk. It's like it's kind of one of the big reasons that Elon Musk, wanted to take over Twitter because he saw it as the town square and he saw that it was not being freely, being really like living up to its values there as a town square, as people
Yeah.
to discuss and whatnot. So I think it is a problem when you have all these smaller groups and stuff where people, range from anywhere from 5 people to 5, 10, 50,000 people, even more, 500,000. Really, it's a problem when these companies like Facebook just own all that and they could just take it
Yeah.
away if they wanted to. Now, it's funny. I was just talking about this in Neo Tokyo, but like the biggest thing I see is with the power of blockchain, we're always able to find each other again. So, you can always instantly verify who is who, and you don't need to worry about that. So, if Discord shut down tomorrow, it would be a bummer. There would be a period where we would have, some issues going on, I'm sure. But over time, things would congregate again onto another platform. I can't really imagine what platform there is. I know that there's other, community platforms and stuff, but the point is we'd always be able to find each other again. Now, if you
Yeah.
took another group, for example, let's say a Facebook group, or something like that, you might not be able to do that ever again, or a Discord group that doesn't have a token gated, membership. It's really
Yeah.
going to be difficult to have everybody commune again. But as long as there is a common contract address that
Yeah.
everybody can fall under, I think it's super, super powerful. And people will always be able to do that. So, yeah, I just love that aspect about things. And yeah, totally, man. Totally.
Awesome. I mean, and that space around identity authentication is such a critical part forward. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. There's a lot of people doing there's some Aussie guys building a company called Verida that essentially is
Wow.
giving people ownership of their social data and identification and the ability to verify profiles without needing to fully dox everything, and the
Yeah.
ability to be able to have authenticated validation of
Mm.
identity, but also empowerment about what you choose to reveal or not is also, I think, a really interesting space. And
What was the
they go
name of it again?
Verida,
Verida.
Veriva. Yeah, so
Okay.
they definitely are a very interesting group to look into with the solutions that they are building around uh, personal identification and authentication, and who owns that
Yeah.
data, and how can you take control of the profiles and presences that you have in the world. And
Yeah.
yeah, that they I think is a really critical part of
Mhm.
where does society head next? And to your point,
Absolutely.
having token gated opportunities and stuff that's validated using blockchain is really
Yeah.
valuable and important.
Decentralization is everything. And I just tweeted about it the other day, but it's like there there's two types of people that I'm realizing the more and more I get into building and just growing in the space. There's your people who have, you know, all the care in the world that they are actually in ownership of what's out there digitally in their digital life.
Yeah.
Whether it's the things that they experience, whether that's social status, whatever the case is, there's those people who care so much about that. And on the other hand, you have people who have no idea that other companies even own it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, right now, Google owns my Google Drive. Why do they own it? Because it was convenient, right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's all I mean, sure, if they shut down, I'm sure they would have a lot of lawsuits and things like that, not meeting their service agreements and stuff. But at the end of the day, we just really need to have ownership over those things. And it's just so important. So yeah, I love that. Decentralization is everything. And like I've often thought too, like, my veteran status shouldn't be beholden to, the Department of Military, the different departments and the VA and stuff like that. I feel like that should be something that I can own myself and call it that.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's just a piece of
And the
paper that,
ability to have that validated,
yeah,
and
oh yeah,
authenticated online, and then that stands forever, right? Like that
yeah.
is yours to be able to control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just so interesting too. Like this last 2 years, I don't know about you, but for me, it's just been so awakening. Like it's shown a lot of what we suspected too. But going through different things and finding out what's really going on behind these companies sometimes is so sus, I guess you could say. Right. And so large companies and stuff doing shady business practices. I think it was just like, Microsoft is always up to something, it seems. And then there's a lot of different things that it seems like has happened, and so it's like our trust in these big tech giants and stuff like that. At least for me, has just been so eye opening. And I've always been a little bit of a skeptic. Again, I'm not like you. I'm not necessarily. I wouldn't regard myself as a tinfoil. I don't think anybody really would in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just so eye opening, and that's just what's really drawn me to that. So it's like if you believe in freedom and really being able to prove that, I think, and verify, your anything about you, uh, in a way that's decentralized, meaning nobody can just flip a finger. The government can't change it. Big tech can't change it. Nobody can change it. You actually own that. That's your right. I think then yeah, you should really stand for the blockchain and what it means. It perfectly aligns with your values. On the other hand, if uh, are somebody who really likes to seek more control and organization in that manner, I think that maybe you might be against blockchain. And not to get too political, but I think that's just kind of fact of the matter is. Um, yeah. So again, I think there's obviously some balances in between there, but yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
looks like we got some.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Sorry, it looks like we had a couple little
All
mic
good.
flare or something. Awesome. Yeah, yeah. So that is really kind of what I was thinking. But anyways, sorry for my spiel there. But yeah,
No,
it's
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 great.
just something that's so powerful. I think it's just super big. So, anyways, Tony, let's get back to you. I talked way too much. Do you have sort of like, if you take 5 years from now, what do you see being the reality that we lived in, and like how you're interacting with NFTs or crypto, really? Like how do you see yourself because of your different experiences? How do you wake up in the morning, you make yourself a cup of coffee, you jump on the computer, whatever the case is. Like how do you see yourself interacting, with this new digital aspect that's kind of really started to maybe either die out or take off? What do you think? What are you thinking there 5 years from now?
Yes. Yeah. So for me, I think, and a space that I'm really interested in and want to explore further, it's less about the fact that it's an NFT or the fact that it's blockchain
Yeah.
technology. It's more the fact
NFT is
that,
a funky word.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's more the fact that it's something that should provide a better consumer solution, right?
Yeah.
So, the ability to have interactions with companies and processes and
Yeah. Totally.
engagement day to day, I think a lot of that will become more digital. And I think the ability
Mm.
for people to serve and provide different options from a digital experience will be better. And I think one of the first touch points will be the different use cases of how do you tokenize and create a better solution than currently exists using NFT technology. So I think,
So through the eyes of Tony, you're waking up,
yeah,
right? Like, let's go back to that analogy really quick. So
yeah,
you're waking up and do you go on do you see it being much more mobile friendly? Like maybe you pick up your
yeah,
phone and you're starting to use this app. Maybe that app is decentralized. Like, what do you
yes,
see just like through
yes.
the POV of Tony?
Yeah, so I feel a lot of my interactions, like, much better from a mobile opportunity. I also feel the notion of, removing obstacles for wallet interactions.
Mm,
It's quite a clunky process at the moment, and from an
okay.
NFT perspective, I see a lot more no or low cost experiences. So when I purchase
Yeah.
tickets, get my NFT. So I love the Aussie
Mm,
rules, Australian sporting game,
mm,
right? So my opportunity to go to a game and get a ticket, and then perhaps at
mm.
the end of the game, I get highlights of the experience that I can then choose and have indelibly connected for my experience in perpetuity over time, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
might be able to go to like Starbucks, and their loyalty program is so smart in terms of the
Yeah.
ability to have custom experiences and have engagement. When I purchase
Wait
something
a minute. I thought you
physical,
said you guys don't have Starbucks there in
no,
Australia.
I'm legit just only because a handful, but what they do with their Odyssey program, right? In terms of
They're going to take
education,
back
giving
off.
people, yeah, added value. I think the big thing to have validated on-chain authentication for what I do day to day and my
Mm,
experiences when I buy something physical, having a digital
mm,
representation of that. I feel,
mm,
one of the great use cases over the last year or so was Penfolds that sells a very high price premium wine, like a bottle of
mm.
Grange is in the tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes people are buying that bottle not to drink. They're buying it
Yeah.
as a luxury item or speculative asset that they to trade. So rather
Yeah.
than shipping a bottle of wine around that's wildly expensive, the
Mm,
ability for someone to pre-purchase a collection and have that sitting
mm,
in temperature controlled, secure environments and having the authentication ownership via NFTs, that's an
mm.
amazing use case, right?
Yeah.
Rather than shifting a product. So I don't think in 5 years it's necessarily fully pervasive, but what I
Mm,
do see is people engaging with day-to-day experiences where there are
yeah.
digital tokens to represent and mark different
Mm,
aspects of their day-to-day life. And that
mhm,
could be purchasing my coffee, it could be seeing something with friends, it could be gaining
mm.
access
Yeah.
to education and validation
Mhm.
of what I've achieved or done. And that stuff I see it becoming more integrated day to day.
So you see almost more of like the I guess like just for the audience too, if they don't really understand like layer two, I think what you're referring to is a lot of layer two approaches.
Yeah,
Things that
absolutely.
are infrastructural. Maybe, we don't see it in our everyday lives as much yet, but the infrastructure there, the underlying things are there. The products and the features may just not have reached the masses yet, may not be widely used or adopted. But like right now, I think we're kind of in that turning point where layer one has really started to shape up. Just similarly, if you rewind all the way back to like the 80s of computing, right? Like look at different protocols. I'm kind of foggy here with IT terms and whatnot, but you have the TCP/IP, and that came out. Then you had different things that operate on different protocols that really kind of use different protocols to communicate and operate off of the different data layers. So really, I think like that missing link is there, like, right? Like we have these products and stuff, and I even deal with this at Hodlperks sometimes where it's like, how can we make it super easy for somebody like an influencer to make their own NFT right away and have all their holders instantly added on? Like the necessarily like the seamlessness of it isn't quite there yet. But I think L2, layer two, is really opening the doors for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you spoke on a little bit, right? Is like the impact of that might not widely be shown yet, but the rumblings or the door is opening. Is that kind of
Yeah.
what, or maybe I'm off there, but yeah,
No, absolutely. It feels like the door's opening now. I think it will be
yeah,
a lot further open by then, but it's
yeah.
not going to be.
It's like we've got our foot in the door right now, and then
Yeah,
like maybe in 5 years it's like wide open.
absolutely. In 10, 20 years, it's vastly different, right? But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, it's still in terms of sort of wider mass adoption.
Oh
It all
yeah.
comes back to less about a philosophical standpoint.
Mm,
Is decentralization better? Is crypto and control of your own money the way of the future? For most people, is this a better user experience for me?
yeah.
And the faster we can answer yes for those questions, the better it will be. Like crypto
Mm,
gaming, the concept of digital ownership of assets versus someone controlling it, you essentially leasing and paying huge amounts of cash
mm,
back to them. Like that's wild. Digital ownership, of
mhm,
course, is the way forward. But
mhm.
primary reason why people game, it needs to be a good game, and
Yeah. Exactly.
the guys that are Mutable that are supporting so many incredible AAA products coming out soon. When the product works and the consumer experience is better, that's when you get the sort of drive and takeoff that will really make a significant difference.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. I mean, it's just I'm having like flashbacks to when I was like little and like getting the dial up internet thing. Like that was so annoying. Like just hearing that terrible noise, the dial up internet, right? And so it's like
Yeah.
I'm living this like past memory in my head is very vague because I was really little then, but I still remember it. I remember loading up a game. I really wanted to play like some flash game, right? And it'd take us 30 minutes after we got the dial up figured out just to load that game onto to like their browser or something like that. So
Yeah.
I yeah, and it was just a simple little flash game. And so it's totally just a thing where it's just a matter. It's not an if, like you said, but it's a when. The direction is headed that way. The nature of it, though, it takes some time to really build up that infrastructure, but it's there. The more and more people come to it who see value in blockchain and really the beauty of decentralization, the more people are going to flock to that. And that kind of goes back to our main point about building products and seeking out value in what we're producing here. Um,
Yeah.
so super cool. What do you feel like is the current one of the biggest missing gaps though in Web3? I mean, I think you kind of maybe touched on that a little bit already, but what do you see as the biggest issue right
I,
now?
I think accessibility and understanding, right? So for people who understand and are hyper engaged, it's easy to navigate your way through. If I have to try to get my mum to come on board and utilize the products, it's too complicated. The
Mm,
different wallet ownerships and the fear of having
mm,
custodial ownership of a 12-word seed phrase, like that is off-putting. So the
mm,
biggest obstacle I feel is removing things in terms of a user experience and making sure that it becomes a frictionless,
mm.
easy to do experience as opposed to jumping through hoops for something that you don't even know
Absolutely.
you necessarily want. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is making sure that the promise of what we're trying to deliver actually is a better experience than what they can get
Yeah.
without the hassle of Web3. And I think you go
Yeah.
to gaming and a bunch of those other opportunities, that should lead the way in having a comparable, if not better experience that sort of drives people to sort of engage and they use it.
Yeah. What would you say then is almost like a product or something in Web3 that you really wish people figured out right now? Or like maybe it already exists, but you don't know about it yet. But like, what's something that somebody could build right now that would almost fill in either that gap or maybe there's another gap that you just like figure out that this is so annoying? Like,
Yeah.
could you do something
So
like this? Like, what would you say?
I think there are solutions for it, but you haven't seen them widely adopted or used.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
instant custodial wallet creation
Mm,
through simple sign-ons. So a lot of
yeah.
the projects in Polygon are doing some really cool stuff where you sign up with
Mm,
Twitter or a Gmail address or your Facebook
yeah.
account, and then you get wallet access. And the ability to
Oh,
do
yeah.
that and have that as seen as a more standard process and make it easier for people to engage. That,
Totally.
I mean, you've seen executions come on board, but it's more that sort of wider adoption that hasn't sort of taken place just yet.
That leads me to think about this. Tony, I know you from your background, you probably have had some good exposure to product marketing.
Yeah,
And just for those who don't know, product marketing is basically figuring out how you can, best take something that you created, if you're a founder or if maybe you work on a company's team or something like that. Figuring out how to best portray what value you bring, right? Now, a lot of times I see startups, they do it terribly wrong. Honestly, we could do it a lot better at Hodlperks too, and showcasing what we actually do. But the biggest thing is you got to get the word out there on how like you got to portray it and put the right context there for people to actually understand what what the heck you're doing, right? Or what problem you solve and to who are you trying to solve? Do you feel like Tony? Do you feel like ever that Web3 has that issue, or do you think that maybe it's just because there's so much noise, things get buried? Like,
yeah.
what do you think?
I feel like it goes back to it's less about the message and how you get the message out. It's more understanding, is there a genuine need that you're trying to solve?
Mm,
And it's less about how do you articulate what that is. It's really understanding, is there an unmet need that
mhm,
needs solving? And so often we have a solution looking for a problem. And I think
mhm,
the flip side has to be, well, what is
Yeah.
the core problem that we're trying to solve? And do people feel
Totally.
that as a pain? And if they feel it
That's
as a
definitely good.
pain and we can provide an appropriate solution, then the communication of the two becomes a lot easier. So it's
It
much more
does. And word of
understanding
mouth
that
spreads. Yeah.
correct. And it's really making sure that is what we're building an assumption on what we think people may want, or do we know that this is a genuine problem for them that they are motivated to solve? And if we
Yeah.
know that that is true, then we can go about creating solutions that meet their needs. And I think that's the critical element that any product needs to work on.
I'm there with you. I 100% agree. I mean, it ties into so many things, but I would also say though that like I do wonder though. I feel like right now, let's just take an example of, those self custodial wallets. Like, at the
Yeah.
moment, I'm busy running from thing to thing, so I don't get as much time to research as I used to. Uh, However, I haven't yet found a super good solution for that. Like something that's super easy, like something where I know I come from a Shopify background. Like if I want
Yeah.
to think about, starting an online store, I know not only me, who thinks about going to Shopify right away, but I think of so many other people who just have had, heard about Shopify, knows that they're, one of the best for just creating an online store. So like, do you feel like there is a little bit of gap there, with products getting out and kind of separating themselves from that? Because I know, like at Hodlperks, we're actually looking for that solution, at least at this
Yes.
moment, trying to dive into that, and I haven't been able to identify something right off the bat.
There definitely are people, and I think have a chat to the Polygon guys in terms of how you get that single sign-on experience integrated and
Hmm.
operational.
Yeah,
Again, I think from a builder and creator perspective, yes, you're looking for solution providers and vendors who can help you solve that problem. From a user,
hmm,
they don't necessarily care. It's less that, oh,
yeah,
I get this great wallet, I
it's
can
true,
do stuff. It's more just like, can
true.
I go log in easily and buy shit? Yes. If
Hmm.
not, oh, I've got to go. I've got this phrase. I don't know what I do with it. It says write it down. And
Yeah,
like, what? That sounds up too much effort. I'm just going away. So it's less about vendors
mm,
getting it out there. It's more about does it facilitate an easy user experience. And in terms of the single
yeah,
sign-on stuff, like there definitely are people who have that OWASP. It's not single sign-on, it's OWASP, the easy authentication
yeah,
to be able to drive stuff forward and create easy experiences.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, sometimes honestly I forget, just being bouncing from thing to thing and figuring out solutions product wise. It is
Yeah.
sometimes difficult to remember, a lot of times there is things that from a consumer's perspective just don't make sense yet.
Yeah.
Um well,
Or also
awesome.
don't matter, right? Like they don't matter. So it's like, oh, you
Hmm.
can do this and it's on the blockchain. It's like, so what? I can do it not on blockchain and it's just as good. So it's
Yeah.
about understanding that, well, what makes it better? Right.
Yeah.
And how does it
Why?
improve? Yeah. Why? And is
Yeah.
that something that
Why?
people care about? And if we look at gaming, right? At the moment,
Hmm.
a lot of gamers don't like NFTs and the concept of
Yeah.
NFTs because they feel it shifts the focus from playing a fun
Yeah.
experience. But what we know for sure is that there are incredibly advanced in-game economies that have worked and been vibrant for years.
Yeah.
If the big if, people get the same wonderful gaming experience, but they get complete ownership of their assets and the
Yeah.
capacity for interoperability between different worlds and
Mm,
environments, that becomes a better experience. But you need the
yeah.
first part first.
Man, I wish I could have gotten something back for all the hours I spent, being, I haven't actually really picked up very like much of a controller ever since, I was like sophomore year, junior year in high school. But so that was, several years ago, but I wish I could have just gotten something back for all that time.
Yeah,
Even if I
yeah,
was like, hey, I sold one ass worth of $100 in fiat or something for all of
yeah,
that thousands of hours I played video games for. I would still be like kind of happy about it now, But
yeah.
it's true though. I mean, people, if you're in that realm, it just makes so much sense. Like you're putting your that's the biggest thing that I've not that I'm a huge fan of video games like in other areas, but like that's one of the reasons that I like can't get myself to do it anymore. When I watch or when I sit down and play a video game or something, I'm like, what benefit is this doing to me right now? Like I'm just losing time. I'm not making any money. My brain isn't really relaxing because I'm interactive. Some people do it. They love to de-stress and stuff that way. Totally fine. I'm not that way. My brain just like can only
Yeah.
do so much for the day and then I'm done. But like, yeah, I mean, there's no benefit. It's just completely net negative for me to game.
Yeah.
And
I
if you
mean,
have, go
sorry.
for it.
Like
Yeah.
a lot of people get the social experience, the challenge, the stuff, but
Oh yeah.
so I mean, it's a massive industry because people enjoy it. But I
Totally.
feel like if you can have that plus additional stuff,
Yeah.
then it makes more sense. But that
Oh
initial
yeah.
full catalyst of what drives people in and the dopamine receptors that sort of fire off and gets people engaged and sort of connected.
Yeah.
If you have that plus more stuff, then it becomes powerful. Sorry, I'm going to
Oh
put my
yeah.
puppy up. She's just
No worries at all.
this should be a great addition. There we go. That's
Hey,
true.
yeah, Doge Pound.
Yeah.
What's your puppy's name?
This one's Sherbet and the other one's Trumpet.
Well, good to know. Do your dogs like the blockchain?
Yeah,
Do they like to build sustain? I just
they love the
but
Doge Pound.
oh, that's perfect. So then they've found
Yeah.
their community. They found their place to call home. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's yeah, and totally. I was trying to remember where we were. There was something I was going to mention. Really, yeah, that we do need kind of an incentive, an extra incentive, especially for people like me. I think like there is that opportunity to even like with gaming in the industry that actually just had this idea. But like if you think about it, um, there is a bigger net to cast. There's a bigger TAM for once it really takes off, in my opinion. And this is the total addressable market for those who don't know, TAM. And there's a bigger market for it if you have an actual good game that is able to provide real world monetary value to its players. Because people like me who would normally never play a video game just because it's a complete net negative experience for them. Um, would actually, now consider it. I would probably wouldn't mind playing a little bit here and there. Just, maybe nothing, too much. But if I was actually like earning a little bit from it and, I was getting some entertainment value from it and whatnot, I would probably consider it. You know what I mean? I'd probably definitely be interested in at least joining. So it's a bigger market than gaming is even today.
Yeah.
Just food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
And
love that.
the other thing is not just about the monetary value, but it's also about the ownership and the fact that assets can be
Yeah.
interoperable, are taken to different worlds. So yeah, it's
Not
really
totally.
exciting space. And yeah,
Yeah,
one kind of-
totally, but it invites people like me in, I think is the biggest thing,
yeah,
like, it gives them a little bit of a kicker to like, "Hey, like, come try it out." You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
totally,
absolutely.
and just to like I don't like to, too much, on this podcast, I don't like
Mm,
to shill Hodlperks too much. I like to try to keep it about, our guests and stuff. But one
mm,
big thing, we've been trying to figure out at Hodlperks is this I talked a little bit earlier about the rise of communities and how important I think they are and how they are going to continue to be something that it's kind of an overused word. Maybe it's just because I say it too much, but community really is powerful, right? And I think, one big huge aspect to that um is when you talk about the advertising industry right now, it is a mess because you have to spend, 40, 50, 60% just to acquire a customer, right? From the ad platform
mm,
you're giving influencers codes, right? Who coupon codes or discount codes, 20, 30% off, whatever the case is, to give out to their audience, who then just get, there's thousands of people who are skimming for these codes, who go then throw it up on an affiliate coupon site and that code then is probably expired, but it's good for SEO purposes so that they can rank higher and, just get more clicks. And then, even if the sale doesn't happen through them, they're still getting credited for it. So there's all these problems that exist. But one thing at
mm,
Hodlperks, I think about kind of going back to this idea of building meaningfully and sustainably in the space is that we're allowing an exclusive way to get something and to provide a perk, but also for the brand to advertise. And we kind of call this I mean, the best way to kind of describe it is I call it community first marketing. You're
yeah,
allowing them to come in to get associated with your brand. You don't have to buy or not, but if they do, they're already kind of giving a kicker, like similar to, drawing a parallel to the gaming industry. they're getting a kicker to get exposed to your brand. And I just
Yeah.
think that's a great way to do things. I think that's a great way to do business. If you're, providing a service up front and they don't know you, giving that discount up front is so good. In my opinion, or that exclusive benefit. It doesn't have to be a discount, but some sort of exclusive. So valuable. So, here at Hodlperks, I think one big thing is that we're just looking forward to that future where more and more brands and stuff look for ways that they can have a little bit more flexibility in the advertising industry in approaching communities, and also get more specific, more tailored to those communities as well. As somebody who scrolls on social media and stuff, I hate when I see ads for like people who like literally are not anything like who I am. It kind of bothers me because it's just not relevant to my who I am as my identity or anything like that. But what if
Yeah.
you were able to approach a community based on their identity? Like, Tokyo, we're a bunch of builders, right? Doge Pound, a bunch of dog lovers. And it's a lot of people who do that. So if you can tailor your advertisement and include them in on that, I think it's just so much better from a brand and from a community member perspective, right? Just my food
Yeah.
for thought, but
No, totally
totally.
agree. Totally agree.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I don't need to like go on these huge tangents, but did you have any
No,
questions
not at
or
all.
any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, absolutely. I feel like the ability to target based on known behavior through
Mhm.
validation on blockchain is powerful, right? Like
Yeah,
a lot of the social
yeah,
stuff is much more powerful than just sort of broad demographic guesses. But
yeah,
it's more based on assumptions. But if you can, there still will be assumptions based on behavior, but the validation and
yeah.
ability to have things authenticated and immutable, like that becomes powerful because it's visible known behavior that you can choose to provide services and value for. Now, again,
Tot
some people may
yeah.
not like that. They might not want all their decisions and purchases seen. And then there's the different layers of, well, what visibility do I wish to offer? How do I own my identity and have different aspects of that visible? Um,
Oh, yeah.
and that will be all stuff to sort of see and discuss.
Oh, totally, totally. Well, Tony, I got 2 more questions, quick
Yeah,
questions,
sure.
for you, and then I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up. But one quick question is like, if you're a builder in this space, and I know you've been exposed to so many projects in your role
Mm.
as, advisor and consultant, both, internally and externally, what would you say, between balancing the building sustainably part, meaning, don't run off of just hype cycles and don't just run off of Ponzi's and greater fool theory, which means basically that you're relying on the next person to take your bag for more expensive than what you got it for. And there's no underlying value. That's basically what it means. So what do you mean, or what do you think of, building finding that balance between building that way and also staying profitable as a Web3 company?
Yeah.
How do you find the balance there between meaningful, sustainable, and profitable?
I mean, it's hard because, sorry, dog, it's all good. The dog's
No
ripping
worries.
something else up. Um,
Sh-
uh, the, the, the main thing I think goes back to, well, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And is there
Yeah.
a genuine problem that you're trying to solve? And if
Yeah.
there is, great, double down on that, back that, understand it, and then really explore how to best create a
Right.
solution to meet those needs. The
So what about the
reality
people
is,
who out there who are trying to just they don't really think of a problem. They're thinking
yeah.
of more of an enhancement. Do you feel like they still
Well, I
like
mean,
I guess like crypto go for it. Yeah,
no,
sorry.
no, you,
I was just going to
no, you
say
go.
like I was just going to say like I think there's some instances where y I mean you could think of it like in gaming. There's not really an issue with gaming today. You could argue that it's annoying that we spend a lot of time and there's lack of
Um,
incentives.
I
But
mean,
would you
it
say
depends on
that
the definition, right? So sorry,
yeah.
like
No, 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 go
enhancement,
for it.
yeah, is enhancement to solve a problem, right?
Yeah,
Like what you have identified is that there are companies that provide discounts and perks, right?
there definitely is. Yeah.
But the ability in what you've identified is that there is an unmet need in which how that could be done in a more direct, authentic, targeted manner. So that
Mhm,
is a problem to solve, right? Like
mhm,
gaming, yeah, like people enjoy games, but the unmet need is the fact that there is a lack of true asset ownership, and
mhm.
that might inhibit people's experience, adoption,
Yeah.
or want. So again,
I th
like the world doesn't need another 10K PFP collection, right?
yeah,
If people are still
okay.
launching them. But why? Well,
Yeah.
because they might be able to flip a buck or may not, right?
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to, well, what are you doing? And if there is a
Yeah.
core driver and a belief that there is something that your product is solving,
Mm-hmm.
great, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, not everything works out. The market will determine whether it lands or not. But I
Yeah.
feel like that isn't confined to Web3, that is the
Yeah.
world. And I feel
Yeah.
like advice to anyone building sustainably is the only way to be sustainable is to be able to have something in mind that you're trying to achieve and understand
Mm-hmm.
why you're trying to achieve that and what is the best way to do it. Um,
Yeah.
Without those premises, then you start falling into pure speculation and hype, which, hey, you might make a buck, and a lot of people have, right? But I think many more have lost. And it just
Yeah.
depends whether that's the path that you want to take,
Yeah.
which for me, it's too risky and I'm not cut out for it.
Yeah.
Like,
No. Oh,
there's no
totally.
point.
I can't like I would hate that. Like I feel like it's like putting your reputation, is putting a lot of things that I would stand for at risk.
Yeah.
Just with that, so it's something that I kind of try to steer clear from, regardless. But yeah, I mean, I think you had some great points there, and I think like one other thing too to keep in mind is building along with where the tech is headed. Like, you know what I mean? Like because in this current day and form, like there might be things that uh don't really make sense at the moment, but if you look at the trajectory of where we're
Yeah.
headed, and where other tech is headed, like I said, an example of how AI and how I think NFTs, really just token-based memberships will kind of meet, at a little bit of a crossroads. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I'm not a genius. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think there's
Yeah.
something there. And I think like it's just so true. Like look at like where we're going, because it's hard to build right now. Maybe there's not a direct solution for everything. But look at these, L1s that, have came out, these L2s, layer twos that are coming out and stuff, all these different protocols and different blockchains and stuff that are just being super important, and different utilizations of them. And it takes time. It takes time. But yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Um, Tony, I wanted to mention just last question. Um, I guess we kind of already spoke about this a tiny bit, but for everybody out there, if you had no idea, you know, uh, much about crypto Twitter, no exposure, no exposure, anything to Web3, um, like why Web3? And if you like, why should they get into it? And if
Yeah.
you're interested in starting and finding your place, maybe you're somebody like your own background, Tony, and
Mhm.
maybe you're somebody who's not looking to start their own company, but looking to get involved and like kind of be working with this technology, and trying to find the right type of mission and company to join potentially. Like,
Yeah.
how do you identify that, and like why Web3, and why should you even look into it in the first place?
Yes. So for me, why Web3 goes back to those two core principles that we touched
Right.
on earlier. Like, do you fundamentally believe, one, that the world will become more digitally immersed? And
Mm.
yes, is my answer. And if so, the platform that Web3 provides in terms of identity or authentication, security, validation, digital assets, all that is Web3. And you
Yeah.
can't believe one without having the other. And for me, that's a key factor. The second factor is there a sense of unease with the effectiveness of the current way banking, finance, control is structured? And is there
Yeah.
a better way to organize it? It may not be, right? But for me, I believe why Web3 is that it provides support solutions and a path forward for those two core problems.
Yeah.
In terms of how do you approach it, well, I think the most important thing, and everyone, it's so nascent, everyone has to educate themselves more. And so it's
Yeah.
finding out communities and people who you trust and who resonate with you, and projects that you believe are interesting, and research, spend time, chat, go in
Mm.
groups, buy stuff to get access and connect and engage and find your home, find a sense of like-minded people you can learn with, help you get better, you can help them get better, and you can laugh with every day. And I feel like that's the best way to really sort of enjoy uh, the learning process and sort of find our own way all individually, because it's it's a big world. It's still very early, but it's very exciting, and being able to share that with people and communities along the way makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that. That's so golden, man. It's so true. Like for me, one of the biggest drivers for me is just freedom. I guess like I've seen
Yeah,
that there's so much uh, power in unlocking that. That
yeah,
the opportunity is there. And so I think for everybody it's so different. But I love that. I love what you mentioned there. Well, Tony, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. Really honored. Thank you so much for taking the time
thank
to
you.
do this out of your busy morning. Love your background, man. It's amazing. I definitely, we need more people like you in the space that continue to drive and build things forward. Love what you're up to. And I'm curious, Tony. So Web3 advisor and consultant currently at the Doge Pound and mintpad.co. Tony, if the audience has anything they want to reach out to you,
Yeah,
where can they
definitely.
find you? They might be listening. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, reach out on Twitter, on LinkedIn, always open to sort of chat, engage, and connect. And yeah, would be great to sort of um, meet lots of new people and sort of go on our journey together. I really
Outstanding.
appreciate
And
the
you're
opportunity.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course, man. We've known each other a little bit, and
Mm.
I love every time we get the chance to talk, man. It's great. And Tony, your Twitter handle is
Yeah,
at
Tony Bean, and LinkedIn as well. Just my name. I'm happy to
awesome,
doc. So yeah,
awesome. Well, wonderful is super big pleasure again. Tony, you have a great rest of your day.
yeah, will do.
All right,
Cheers. Have a good
bye.
one. Thanks so much.